What's cracking, big dogs? Welcome back to the HQ. Your man's is finally back from Mexico. Ay, 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 ay. I got very burnt, but your man's got some color. I apologize if I was absent on the Twitter or the Instagram or the YouTubes, whatever. While I've been gone, I didn't get back to your questions, but it was obviously because I was on vacation. I promise I won't do that to y'all again. Today, you're gonna get a recap of preseason week 1. Now, I wasn't able to watch the games while they happened, which is why I didn't get this out quicker, but I went back yesterday. I watched a lot of the stuff on Game Pass, and I read a lot of usage reviews and a lot of recaps on my own so that I could give you the best available knowledge that was out there that wasn't straight from the Hefe's mouth. So we're just gonna get into it because I have a dentist appointment in about 20 minutes I have to get to. So hopefully we can run through this quicker than Ronald Jones runs through the line. All right, first thing I want to say is preseason results are meaningless. Preseason results are meaningless. The process is gorgeous. The process is where you can find the gold mines, the gems, where you can get a leg up on your opponents. So do not dismiss preseason games because the box scores don't matter. What does matter is that the coaches finally have to show their cards. They have to show you how they feel about players. They have to show you who they think are the starters for their team, who the first team snaps are going to, because that is what is important. You're not going to throw players out there on the field if they're not starters with the first team. Why would you want to get reps with people who aren't going to be out there running with the first team during the regular season? So that's the big thing to take away when we have these preseason games in action. Like, is there someone who's in a camp battle, right? Or so the beat reporters come out and say it's a wide open field, it's a camp battle, blah, 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 blah. And then we see on the first preseason game that one of the running backs played in 13 of the 14 snaps for the first team offense, and the only snap he didn't get was to his backup running back, who already wasn't known as a good pass catcher, comes in and plays one snap with the first team and then drops a pass on that one snap. That's just hypothetical, completely hypothetical. So we're going to run down some of the key notes, some of the key things that I took away. I might have missed a few things here, to be honest with you. I've been in a hectic, crazy rush. I also got this little falcon skull from Mexico, straight from the trenches, straight from the muck, really. Yo, Mexico's really in the muck out there if you're not on the Cancun Islands and whatnot. But this is hand-painted by somebody. I figure there's some good decoration for the HQ. So I'm just going to kind of read down my notes here, guys. I'm going to be looking at my screen most of the time, so don't be upset if I'm not looking you in your eyes. This ain't a date. This is just me bringing noise to your faces. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to touch on in the beginning here is from an amazing article by Graham Barfield of fantasyguru.com. who's shown to me by one of my subs, one of my friends at this point, Michael, who's constantly probably seen in the comments throwing shade at a lot of you guys, which is enjoyable for me to watch from the sidelines. Anyways, he put up an awesome free article about usage during the first week of the preseason, which I will link below. I highly recommend you guys read that article. But we're just going to start things off with Christian McCaffrey on the Carolina Panthers. He played all 15 snaps with the starters, right? Cam Newton and the starters were on the field for 15 snaps. Christian McCaffrey played in every single one of them. That included a 2-yard touchdown score, or he got the ball on the goal line, right? He was the guy who they gave the ball to with the first team offense on the 2-yard line, not C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson was playing into the fourth quarter with the third string offense. So, I've been someone who has been low on Christian McCaffrey. I've been someone who thinks C.J. Anderson was a great pick in the 8th, 9th, 10th round, but it's possible that we have to temper our expectations. It's possible that C.J. maybe needs more time with the team because he did just sign with them and maybe doesn't know the offense that well. There could be a few different things, but by the time, week 3 comes around in the preseason, we will know a lot more. And if this is the case where Christian McCaffrey is going to be playing 90% of the snaps, come the season, then he's probably going to be a much better play than I had initially anticipated. Guys, this is going to happen, right? I'm going to call things throughout the preseason and things are going to change. No one's 100% correct on this. A lot of the projections you guys have are going to be wrong. Same with me. So the only thing we could do is take the information at hand, see what we see in the game film, from the analytics department, in the box score as well, and shift our analysis. And I will be the first one to come out and tell you, yes, I might be wrong on Christian McCaffrey here. I don't hate the player. I just didn't think there was going to be enough usage there, and I think their offensive line is going to struggle. But we'll know more as the weeks come down. Number 2, another running back who is getting a lot of hype, a younger guy, and that is Ronald Jones out in Tampa Bay. Rushed for 9 yards on 8 carries, scored a touchdown. He played with the first team though, however, so that don't look at that touchdown. That literally is meaningless. He played with the first team on just one snap. The big takeaway here is Peyton Barber, who we've heard camp reports all summer about how Peyton Barber is legitimately running with the ones and he might be the actual starter there in Tampa Bay. Guys, I tell you this all the time. There is so much noise that comes out through beat reporters, but when you start hearing things, the same things over and over again from different people on different days, there's probably something to it. And that's the case here with Peyton Barber, who played on 13 of the first team offense's 14 snaps. That should tell you where the Bucs coaching staff sees Peyton Barber. Ronald Jones came in for one snap with the first team offense. They threw a dump off pass to him and he dropped the ball. This is not good considering Ronald Jones was a guy who I had told you guys, I'm not saying he's a bad pass catcher, but I'm saying that's something that he has not proven that he is good at, right? Just because you can say he's not a bad pass catcher doesn't mean he's good and doesn't mean he's going to be used that way. So it looks like Ronald Jones is pretty far behind Peyton Barber on the depth chart, and people need to start drafting accordingly. Right now, Ronald Jones is currently the 59th pick overall, running back 25. Barber is RB 63 going after pick 200. Absolute steal. And thank God I actually own a pretty good amount of Barber shares in best ball league, so I highly suggest you guys start drafting best ball because you could still take advantage of the ADPs. You could do that by going to draft.com/BDGE. You could use promo code BDGE and get a free $3 entry into a real money league. But that's not what I'm here for. I don't have time to plug shit when I got a dentist appointment. Come on, Nick. You're better than that. So, Peyton Barber is this bigger back, if you guys are unaware. He's 5'11", 220, 225 pounds. Built like a workhorse, right? He can definitely carry the load in a backfield, and we saw that last year. Down the stretch, they trusted him as their RB1, as their main guy. Over the last 5 games of 2017, Barber touched the ball 90 times, which is 18 touches per game. He caught multiple passes in 4 of those 5 games, proving that not only are they comfortable giving him a workload, but he's also inept in the pass catching portion of the field. And honestly, I'm not sure if I used inept wrongly or correctly there. Is inept not good or good? Someone will call me out on it in the comments anyway. So I'm saying that Peyton Barber proved that he can absolutely be part of the pass catching sphere in the Tampa Bay backfield. He's also, like I said, a bigger back, much bigger than Jones. It's possible they use him in the goal line situations. I did just hear a report yesterday that Charles Sims is not a lock to make the roster. So if Charles Sims, who we suspected to be the pass catching back here in Tampa Bay, does not make the roster, that opens up a lot of work. And I think that will probably go towards Peyton Barber, man. Peyton Barber is an incredible value right now, and he needs to start being drafted around where Ronald Jones is currently being going. So that's an RBBC that needs to definitely close its gap. And the third thing here, this one hurts a little bit, man, but the numbers don't lie. Michael Gallup impressed in his debut. The wide receiver rookie in Dallas, Michael Gallup, was impressive. But, and you know I've been touting Allen Hurns all offseason. I do wanna hold the phones here a little bit. You look at his box score and you're like, yeah, he caught a 30-yard touchdown, right? But he only caught 1 of his 3 targets. And when you watch the replay, I want you to watch this, right? He's all the way up top of the screen. He creates literally no separation on his route, creates no separation, and at the end of the throw is when the cornerback is literally draped right on him. He turns around because he thinks the play is over, and then Michael Gallup gains separation because of that. It's not because he beat the defender. So I don't think that's a predictive, it's all about finding predictive things in a player's either his film or the numbers behind what he did. And that's just like a blown coverage. That is not saying anything about Michael Gallup being good. What I will say is a takeaway here, he played on 8 of the 9 starter snaps for the Cowboys. Allen Hurns played on 6 of the 9 snaps that the starters had. Thing about Hurns is though he's dealt with a groin injury throughout training camp, and he's missed some practice time. So that's obviously going to hurt. When you're coming over to a new team, you need to learn the offense, you need to build chemistry, especially I think wide receiver is probably one of the harder positions to miss time and still move up the depth chart. So that might be a reason that Hurns moves down the depth chart. The other thing with Gallup is on that play, you see the fact that he was draped by a cornerback, right? He had no separation on the cornerback. Tells me that Dak trusts him enough to throw the ball up to him to make a play. So that's a good thing to take away. That is a predictive thing. That's something you could look at and be like, okay, Dak trusts Michael Gallup to make plays. So that's something I'd be like, okay, that's a positive for Michael Gallup. The fact that he scored a 30-yard touchdown means nothing to me, considering it wasn't an impressive touchdown. He got lucky on a blown coverage. For Allen Hurns, man, he's dealt with that groin injury, like I said, and you have to be realistic, man. If an injury keeps you out of training camp and that moves you down the depth chart, then so be it, and that's what's going to happen. But again, we'll get more intuition on this once we move into weeks 2 and 3 of preseason. And I want to just, in terms of Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis, this is still a very much split backfield, and I'm just going to take this quote straight from Graham Barfield's article. The Titans' first-team offense ran 9 plays with Marcus Mariota under center in their preseason opener, and Derrick Henry, Dion Lewis's shared usage didn't surprise a bit. Henry outsnapped Lewis 6-3, but Lewis played on 2 third-down opportunities, and the duo split red zone snaps 2-2. Shouldn't be a surprise here. Both guys are likely to split work. There's a really good chance that at the end of the season, guys, both guys end up as top 30 or even top 24 fantasy running backs. The problem is it's going to be very hard to predict on a week-over-week basis which running back you want to use. And I'm sure they'll both have their good games, and I'm sure they'll both have their games where you're like, shit, I wish I didn't play them. It's really hard to tell which you're going to get from them because the Titans they're not a great team. They're kind of, I would say, like middle of the pack, probably a little bit above average. So it's not like you're going to go into many games where you're like, oh, they're going to kill this team or they're going to get wiped out. So you have that intuition on which running back to play. That's the thing. Like this could definitely be one of those situations where they both end up with overall good numbers when you look back at the end of the year. But week over week, it's very hard to predict which one you want to play, which is probably why I'm going to end up avoiding both of them in drafts unless they fall to a pretty good value. Andrew Luck looked good. As I've been saying, all it took was one game, one piece of video, one something for people to start believing in Luck. I do want to say, though, this is a tweet from Matthew Betts. He is a fantasy PT, basically. He centered, just like I had Dr. Jesse Morse. Same thing, Matthew Betts, but he is specialized with the fantasy footballers. Few observations from Andrew Luck's first throws since returning from his shoulder surgery. He didn't complete a pass more than 20 yards down the field. A little bit concerning, but not crazy. He took a few hits, was sacked, and got back up with confidence, which is huge. He looked comfortable with his throws with defenders close by, which is also huge. And this is a tweet from Ben Baldwin, at Ben B. Baldwin on Twitter. Andrew Luck threw 9 passes in this game. He went 6-9 for 69 passing yards, which is good to see. It's nice to see him complete passes and gain some leverage down the field, but through 9 passes, only one of them traveled more than 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. The average depth of target was 3.7 yards. So it was obviously nice to see Andrew Luck on the field and him throwing the ball and being comfortable getting hit and stuff, but we do need to see him throw the ball down the field because, a huge part of this offense is going to be a guy like T.Y. Hilton and Andrew Luck connecting with him down the field. So we need to know that he's comfortable throwing the ball down the field. But either way, it's definitely a move in the positive direction. Move on to, sorry, I'm just scattered and all my notes are just chicken scratch. And if you want to read this in blog form, you can go do that on bigdogsfantasy.com. Just hit the blog section on top and you can read. Every video I make is based on notes that I just write. I write the notes on my website and I post them as a blog post. It's not organized whatsoever. It's just like random notes that I write throughout, but you can always go back to that and reference it if you don't want to, watch my videos and whatnot. I don't know why you wouldn't want to watch my beautiful videos, but for the 4 of you that want to do that. DJ Moore looked awesome. And I think he's probably becoming the pass catcher in this offense I want. I know some people were like kind of high on Devin Funchess. I was someone who took a stance early in the offseason that I was avoiding Devin Funchess by all stretch of the imagination because he put up a good year last year, but there's no way he's hitting those numbers again based on the fact that they brought in a lot of weapons, DJ Moore being one of them. Caught 4 of 6 targets for 75 yards, looked great catching the ball and then running with the ball in his hands. He was always a guy who was really good in terms of yards after catch, right? He's the yak god. He's the yak god when it comes down to it. That was something that we saw, and I think Cam Newton's going to look his way a lot. So DJ Moore, stock is definitely rising up. If you want to see where any of these guys are in my rankings, obviously you can grab my draft guide, which has been open since, I think, July 9th or something, which I update weekly. My rankings are always updated in real time, which today's Wednesday, so you guys will, those of you who have purchased it, will be getting the email with the new updates today. And yeah, the draft guide has all my top sleepers, my top busts, must draft players, all my rankings, rankings for positional as well as overall, and then a bunch of other shit, your top resources to do fantasy research and all, and just a ton of other stuff in there. But go grab the draft guide right now. It's on sale. I will link. It's already linked down below, but go check it out if you are wondering what my rankings are, because I don't post my rankings anywhere except for in the draft guide. Let's talk about a few running backs. Kerryon Johnson, my boy, his stock is shooting up. Went 7 for 34 on the ground. He caught 4 passes for 33 yards, which is great, seeing that he's well capable of being involved in the passing game, because the knocks on him obviously were that LeGarrette Blount is going to take the goal line work, Theo Riddick's going to take the pass catching work, but I think the Lions really want to use one running back. I think every team wants to do that. They want to have a guy who's versatile that they can use at any point in the field, so you don't have to. The reason, like, you might be like, no, obviously they don't, because they have all these 3 running backs, but the reason you want to have a versatile running back is because you don't tip your cards. If you have LeGarrette Blount on the field, there's a good chance that you're just going to run it up the gut, or that you're running the ball. If you have Theo Riddick on the field, you ain't running it with him, right? You're more in passing situations. When you have a guy who could do it all, it doesn't tip your hand to the defense, and that means you could hurry up. You don't have to keep switching guys in and out of the field. It's just these kind of things add up when you have a versatile back, and Kerryon Johnson showed that he could do that. He also got a 57-yard run called back via penalty. He just looked awesome. If you watch any of that game, Kerryon Johnson looked as much as advertised as I thought he would be in the preseason. He's a guy you guys know, obviously, that I really liked. Marshawn Lynch. I'm sure you all saw the highlight of him running down the field looking like a young beast mode. It was a 60-yard touchdown that got called back in the first quarter. Unfortunately, like, the next play, Doug Martin came in and took over running back duties pretty much, which is terrible, but it's good to see. It's good to see that Marshawn Lynch still has that burst, right? Because that's something that you see in preseason, right? If you don't pay attention to the preseason, that's something you won't see, and you'll just be like, Marshawn Lynch is old, but he clearly can still outrun defenses and still outrun linebackers and D-backs and things like that, which is so impressive for a guy his size and his age. So that's good for Marshawn Lynch. However, when you look at this tweet by Adam Levitan, the GOAT, Derek Carr played 6 snaps on Friday, so basically starter snaps, wide receiver snaps, Cooper, Jordan Nelson, Griff Williams, Martavis Bryant. I'm not really going to talk about Bryant, but apparently he's moving down the depth chart pretty quickly, so shoot up Mark Cooper, shoot up Jordy Nelson. Running back snaps, Marshawn Lynch 2, Doug Martin 4. It's possible that Marshawn broke that run, and either he was tired or they were just like, yep, we've seen all we needed to see. Let's get Doug Martin out there, because maybe they're not sure what they have in Martin and they want to see more work with him and see if they have anything in there. But it's also possible that they're just going to be terrible at coaching and shove Martin into touches that he doesn't deserve. Marshawn Lynch deserves to be a huge part of this offense, but you have to be realistic about it and say, is Lynch going to get the workload that he deserves here? All right, so turns out I didn't get that in prior to the dentist appointment, man. Dentist really fucked me up. Dentists have a funny way of making you feel like a little bitch every time you go there, man. That stuff hurts so bad. And I don't consider my teeth that nice, but like, I take care of them. I brush at least twice a day. I use like Listerine or whatever. I floss like 2 or 3 times a week. But they still stick that goddamn knife in you, and you bleed. You bleed like you just got shot in your fucking face. It's unbelievable. Every time I go, I'm like, nah, next time I'll be fine. It doesn't really hurt that bad. And they hit you in that one spot, man. If I start bleeding out my mouth during this video, y'all know why. But let's continue. I forget where I left off. About Marshawn Lynch. Yeah, so Marshawn Lynch obviously looked good. But again, like I've been saying, there's a chance that the coaching is bad. It's not what you want to happen. It's what's realistic, what's going to happen. Just because you want Marshawn Lynch to get 20 carries a game doesn't mean John Gruden and his 1984 coaching style is going to give him 20 carries a game. So that's a buyer beware. I love Lynch, but if his ADP starts creeping up into the 6th, 5th round, I'm probably fading. Next, running back, Royce Freeman out of Denver. He carried the ball 4 times for 38 yards and a tutty. He definitely outplayed Devontae Booker. Devontae Booker did get the start, however, in there, but he didn't perform well. Their first couple drives did not get off the ground, and this is going to be a full competition. As we've been hearing all offseason, we're hearing Devontae Booker is going to be very involved, and we're hearing Royce Freeman has a chance to be the feature back. But again, these reports are very conflicting, which means there's definitely something going on from both sides. So whoever performs the best out of these next 2-3 preseason games is probably going to be the one who locks up that starting role, and it was a good start for Royce Freeman. So definitely a good start for Royce Freeman. I do think both backs are going to be heavily involved in this offense. There's a lot of opportunity for both guys, and like I've said before, I have no problem picking. If their ADP stays about where it is now, I think Freeman's about pick 60 to 65 overall. Booker's like all the way up in the 120s. I would be fine rostering both guys because they will both be involved, and if something happens to one or either of them, then you're set and you kind of own that backfield. The last running back I really want to touch on right here is John Kelly, a guy out of Los Angeles for the Rams. A lot of guys probably don't really know John Kelly, but he's a guy kind of like Kareem Hunt, who people aren't going to get super excited about because he doesn't excel at anything in terms of measurables or metrics. He's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. He won't blow away the combine numbers. However, he does his work through the intangibles, through balance and vision and his one-cut ability, and we saw that in the first preseason game. Let's see. He fell very far into the draft, which is upsetting because a lot of people really like John Kelly coming out, and had he had a higher draft capital, he'd have a real shot at competing for a starting job in the NFL. But he fell to the Rams late. I think it was a seventh round pick, I believe, and now he's behind Gurley, of course. So I'm not in any way saying this is going to be a committee between Kelly and Gurley, but I do think that following his preseason week 1, right, a lot of people liked him, and now he had a really strong performance, 13 for 77 yards on the ground, as well as 14 yards through the air on 2 catches. So you're seeing that he can run the ball successfully. He had a lot of nice runs that he ripped off, as well as be involved in the passing game. I would say he's the clear-cut handcuff to Todd Gurley. So if you're in a deeper league and you like handcuff and you go with Gurley, John Kelly is definitely a guy that I would keep an eye on, if not roster, if you have deep rosters. So Marlon Mack ran with the ones. He left with a hamstring injury after playing most of the snaps with the starters, which is not good, of course, but this particular video is not going to be covering all the injuries because there's been so many that are covered, and in my draft guide, which I do a weekly news updates portion of video covering all the latest news of the past week, I'll probably cover that more so in the injury section. But he left, right, and reports say he's going to miss a few weeks. It's never good to miss a few weeks, especially already coming off this shoulder injury. Now he's going to miss a few weeks, which opens up more starter reps for guys like Jordan Wilkins, for guys like Nyheim Hines. They also have Robert Turbin and Christine Michael. Turbin is out for the first 4 games with a suspension. Christine Michael might get some of the goal line carries there. I still personally like Jordan Wilkins where he's going. He's my favorite pick in this backfield. He's someone that's getting a lot of praise out of this Indy Colts camp, and he's getting picked right now as RB 59 in draft, and he's going to have a real shot to compete for the number one role in this backfield. So Jordan Wilkins is definitely a guy I would be happy drafting in the 15th, 16th round of my picks with starter upside in this Andrew Luck offense. For Marlon Mack, this is going to definitely move him pretty far back into my rankings because you don't want to miss time, especially in a new offense. He's not someone who's really proven. He didn't have a great year last year, though he did lock up a starting role. It's probably because there's longevity in the offense, but this is definitely an open competition. I want to talk about the Cleveland Browns. So obviously David Njoku balled out, right? Caught 2 of his 3 targets for 46 yards. Both of those catches went for touchdowns. So he finished with 2 touchdowns. If you're looking at the box score, you're like, yep, I predicted this Njoku breakout. Here it is. I'm saying again, hold the brakes. Number 1, this was against the New York Giants defense, who has been fucking horrible against the tight end position. They let up the 2nd most fantasy points to the position last year. They weren't good the year before that, and they are going to continue to have problems guarding the tight end position. So that's, number 1. Number 2, they didn't have Josh Gordon on the field, who is a big target who takes away some of those downfield targets from a guy like Njoku. You have Antonio Callaway probably playing his way into a pretty significant role. He had a really good game, caught 3 of 7 targets, 87 yards and a touchdown, so he showed his big playmaking ability. So what I think I take away from this is not so much that I'm not all in on Njoku. There's still a lot of weapons there. There's still an offense that might not be very high volume in passing, but what I do like is I think Tyrod Taylor is cementing himself as a very good streaming option because he's getting picked probably quarterback 25. He is the starter there, man. There's no question about it. They're grooming Baker Mayfield down the stretch, but if you're a streamer, you don't really care about that because you can get them for a price tag of like nothing and then drop them if you want. He was very good in this opener, 5 for 5, just under 100 yards and a touchdown, and he obviously, with all these weapons, his passing numbers are going to be far more efficient than they were in Buffalo, and we've seen him have success as a fantasy quarterback in Buffalo, so he can definitely do it in this improved offense, and he always gives you that rushing floor of like 3 to 4 extra fantasy points a game just based on that. So I think Tyrod Taylor is definitely putting himself in position to be a good fantasy late round quarterback. Still dealing with the Browns. I want to talk about their running back situation. So we have a usage stat that you kind of need to take note of, and this is Carlos Hyde. He played in just 3 snaps. The first 3 snaps of the game, he was a starter, and they took him right out. That is what teams do to their unquestioned number 1 starters. They put him in the game for a second, let him touch the field, let him, stroke the grass, and then you take them out so you know they're not getting injured. And that's what it looks like they are doing with Carlos Hyde. 3 snaps with the starters right out of the game. Take his helmet off, take the pads off, he's good to go. That tells you that Carlos Hyde has a pretty sizable lead over Nick Chubb for that early down workload. So Nick Chubb is pretty far behind him. At his current ADP of 100, running back 39, Carlos Hyde is not a bad pick. Again, he kind of lacks the ceiling because Chubb will always be there, and Duke Johnson will have a big pass-catching role. Since he's entered the NFL, no running back has caught more passes than Duke Johnson. That is a stat from J.J. Zachariason of the late-round quarterback podcast that I actually just heard on my way back from the dentist. So that's what I have to say about Carlos Hyde. If you're going to choose one right now, I would probably choose Carlos Hyde. Obviously not in Dynasty. Chubb is still the buy in Dynasty. But right now, the way the Browns are using Carlos Hyde shows you that he is the starter there. And that's the same with the reports that we're hearing out of camp. Lastly, I want to touch on Chris Carson versus Rashad Penny. The battle continues from Adam Levitan. Russell Wilson played 12 snaps Thursday. Running back snaps. Chris Carson 7, Rashad Penny 5. Penny was in for the lone 3rd down play. Also got 2 snaps inside the 10-yard line. Now, I went back and watched all of their touches, Chris Carson's and Rashad Penny's touches in this game. I think they both looked good, to be honest with you. I'm not someone who hates Rashad Penny. I just don't think that he's offering the fantasy ceiling that a lot of people see. Chris Carson is very, very, very much a thing. It is not Rashad Penny's backfield, despite him being the 1st-round pick. You have to remember, dude, the Seahawks, just because from the outside it looks good and this is what should happen, Seahawks are an organization that played Eddie Lacy way past his prime. They tried to mush all of these running backs in over Alex Collins, cutting him 1 year after having him on the team. They cut Alex Collins. Now he's a starting running back for Baltimore. They have Chris Carson, the 7th-round pick, and now they want to play him over the 1st-round pick, Rashad Penny. It's this is what they do. They make unconventional decisions, and it doesn't always work out the way you think it is. So this is just a warning call to tell you this is not Rashad Penny's backfield to absolutely own. This is absolutely a running back by committee right now. I actually feel like I saw something that Rashad Penny went down with an injury today, or he left the field or something. Dude, I could have sworn I saw something. He definitely left practice today. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I didn't see it, and I should stop looking at fantasy football Twitter while driving. Okay, well, I'm filming this on Tuesday, releasing it on Wednesday. I'm sure by tomorrow, if this was a thing, you guys will know about it way more than I will. Okay, whatever. So anyways, just saying this is a full-on committee here. The last couple things I want to touch on is the Packers wide receiver group. They had a very interesting night. They had the 3 rookie wide receivers, Jamon Moore, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Equanimeous St. Brown, so ESB. They were all pretty involved. Jamon Moore got 7 targets. Marquez Valdez, I'm just calling him MVS from now on. Jamon Moore had 7 targets, as did MVS. Jamon Moore did not convert those targets into a big night. He was 3 for 7, I believe. He caught 3 passes for 27 yards. Yeah, okay. Let me get back on track here. Let me get the mojo flowing. MVS. If he busts out, bro, MVS is a good nickname. Most valuable sleeper. I like that. He turned those 7 targets into 5 catches, 101 yards, and a tutty. So he had the big night. Equanimeous St. Brown caught 4 of 6 targets for 61 yards. So they all had their time and place, their opportunity to do what they needed to do. Here's the thing I will say. This does not make MVS the number 1 late round guy there for wide receivers. I think very much still it's Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Geronimo Allison. It will definitely be a battle. I think that's why a lot of these guys got opportunities here. The one thing I will say is we see a lot of big blow-up games from receivers like MVS. And by that I mean he's a guy who is big, long, gets down the field, is a 4.37 40-yard dash, which is pretty much elite at the NFL level. You see a lot of guys that have these crazy measurables and metrics have big games in preseason. And it's because you don't head into week 1 preseason with game plans, right? And you don't head into those game plans being like, yes, we want to make sure we shut down MVS. That's not really what it's about. It's about finding who meshes well, who's going to be the starters in these committee situations, who plays better under the lights. So it's not, when you see a guy like that explode, that doesn't mean necessarily that he is going to jump up in the charts. if we hear, rumors that he is starting to practice more with the ones as the third wide receiver, or if he jumped ahead of Jamon Moore in the depth chart, Jamon Moore was taking practice reps with the starters when Randall Cobb was out and when these other receivers were dealing with injuries. So I still like Jamon Moore the most here. Equanimeous St. Brown is another guy like MVS who has these crazy measurables and metrics, and they're likely to explode in the preseason because other teams aren't necessarily like, yep, this is his, like they don't study the scouting reports for these preseason week 1 games. And if I'm wrong, this is what I think. I'm not sure. Like, obviously I've never played on an NFL team, but I highly doubt they go that in depth with the scouting reports on a guy like MVS and be like, yep, he's going to beat us down the field, because that's what makes these statistics in the preseason kind of jump off the charts at you. So no movement there. It's another situation to kind of just monitor as the weeks go by. Last thing I want to touch on is Alex Collins. He looked good. I watched all of his touches again as I expected him to look good. He's just a good running back, so he's always going to look good because that's who he is. But his snaps, man, the snaps were split with Buck Allen, 6-6 with Joe Flacco under center. So as much as I love Collins and I love his upside, it's kind of scary that they're going to split snaps still. Buck Allen got all 3 third downs. Of those 6 snaps, 3 of them were third downs. He caught a few passes. He was targeted on a bunch of passes from Flacco, which is not what you want to see if you were drafting Alex Collins to, hopefully have him in a pass-catching role. While Collins had more touches, he also was in on the 6-yard line when they had a play from there. Flacco ended up throwing the ball in for a touchdown, but Collins was there, when they're like by the goal line, which is a good sign. But they still seem to like Buck Allen for whatever reason as a pass-catching back, even though Collins is more explosive and he's better in the open field. Again, guys, it's all about being realistic. It's not what you want to happen. It's what's realistic and what will really happen. That's a big takeaway to these preseason games. So that's kind of the wrap-up I have. I'm sure I missed a few things, so you feel free to comment down below and I'll give you my opinion on them. If you found this valuable, please give me the thumbs up. I would very much appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And I'll see y'all on tomorrow, because if you missed yesterday's video, it was an interview with Andy Holloway of the Fantasy Footballers. No player analysis, just talking about the fantasy football industry. Really, really cool video. Getting a lot of positive feedback from those, so go check that out. We have tomorrow's video is the second episode of the behind the scenes fantasy football industry with Josh Hornsby, who you might know as Josh ADHD or Fantasy ADHD on Twitter. Highly suggest you go check him out and follow him. He is the guy who makes tools basically for RotoViz, for Fantasy Insiders, for Roto Grinders. About, you see the ADPs shifting and stuff. I'll link that down below. It's a really, really cool tool to see how a player is being drafted over a period of time. The charts are very aesthetic. They're cool looking. So he will be on tomorrow's episode. And those episodes will be every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, along with my regular content. The Monday and the Muck. Wednesdays are probably going to be breakdown videos, or I might start doing the breakdown videos on Monday following all the games, and then in the Muck on Wednesdays, even though that'd be kind of fucked up. It doesn't flow. It's not what I'm about, but I'll figure that out. Fridays will still be mock drafts. Sunday will be live streams. But that's it. Yeah, thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you want to. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace. We dance.